I'll never forget that knock. 3 sharp taps on my apartment door right at midnight on a Tuesday. It wasn't a casual neighbor's knock or the confident rap of a delivery driver. It was desperate and urgent, the kind that freezes your heart before your mind even reacts. I was in my pajamas about to brush my teeth when it came. My first thought was that someone had the wrong door. That thought disappeared the second I opened it. Claire stood there, swaying like she might collapse at any moment. But it wasn't just that she'd shown up unannounced at midnight. It was her face. Her left eye was swollen shut, the skin around it deep purple fading to black. Her lower lip was split, crusted with dried blood. And worst of all were the bruises around her neck. Dark, finger-shaped marks circling her throat like a terrible necklace, showing exactly where someone's hands had been. "Amber," she whispered, her voice faint and broken. Then her knees gave out. I caught her before she fell, pulled her inside, and slammed the door shut. My hands trembled as I guided her to the couch. She was shaking all over, gasping as if she'd forgotten how to breathe. I didn't need to ask who had done this. I already knew. I'd known something was wrong for months, but Claire had always been so good at hiding it, making excuses. Still, I asked, "Claire, who did this to you?" She only cried, deep, awful sobs that shook her whole body. Let me go back and explain, because this didn't happen overnight. Things like this never do. Claire and I are twins, identical, 28 years old, born 7 minutes apart. I never let her forget that made me the older one. Growing up, no one could tell us apart. Even our Aunt Patricia, who raised us after our parents died in a car accident when we were 12, would mix up our names. But we were different where it mattered. I was the loud one, the fighter, the girl who once punched Tommy Richards in 8th grade for pulling Claire's hair. Claire was softer, kinder. She always saw the good in people, believed anyone could change, wanted to fix things. I became a kickboxing instructor. She became a kindergarten teacher. It fit us perfectly. Then, 4 years ago, Claire met Brandon Morrison at a charity event her school hosted. He was 32, successful, came from money. A real estate developer with a charming smile and polished manners. He donated a large sum to the school and asked her out that same day. I met him on their 3rd date when Claire brought him to dinner at Aunt Patricia's house. From the moment I shook his hand, something felt off. He said all the right things, complimented Aunt Patricia's cooking, asked me about my gym. But the way he looked at Claire, it was possessive, like she was something he owned, not loved. I told Claire how I felt the next day. Big mistake. She got defensive, accused me of being overprotective, of not wanting her to be happy. We argued, really argued for the first time in our lives. She stopped calling as often after that. 10 months later, they were married. Brandon said, "When you know, you know." The wedding was beautiful, expensive, and wrong in every way. I stood beside her as maid of honor, watching my sister marry a man who had convinced her in less than a year to quit her job, move into his suburban mansion, and give up things like our weekly lunches. After the wedding, I saw her less and less. Our calls grew shorter. Visits stopped. There were always excuses, work events, house renovations, feeling unwell, being too busy. But we're twins. We've always had a connection. I could feel something was off, even when she smiled and insisted life was perfect. The signs were subtle at first. Long sleeves in summer, canceled plans, that empty look in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. How she'd flinch when someone moved too quickly. How she started saying, "Brandon thinks," or "Brandon says," instead of sharing her own thoughts. 6 months ago, I showed up at her house unannounced. Brandon answered, blocking the doorway with his body. He said Claire was sleeping and maybe I should call first next time. His smile never reached his eyes. I never got past that door. 3 months ago, I saw Claire at the grocery store. I hugged her, and she winced. When I pulled back and asked if she was okay, she laughed and said she'd pulled a muscle at the gym. But Claire didn't go to the gym. When I touched her arm, she flinched. I started calling more, texting, trying to see her, but Brandon was always there, always watching, always with an excuse why she couldn't talk or meet. I felt helpless, angry, scared. Then came that midnight knock. Now she was on my couch, crying so hard she could barely breathe. I got ice, wrapped it in a towel, and held it gently to her face, trying not to shake with rage. "Talk to me," I said softly. "Tell me everything." It took nearly an hour. Her words came out broken between sobs and long pauses. It began small, Brandon criticizing her clothes, her cooking, her friends. Then came the yelling, the control, tracking her phone, checking messages, setting rules about where she could go and what she could spend. Then the physical violence, pushing, grabbing, hitting, but always where no one could see, and always with threats if she ever told anyone. That night had been the worst. Dinner was cold because Brandon came home late without warning. He grabbed her, shook her, and then his hands found her throat. He squeezed until she saw darkness closing in, certain she was going to die. Then he let go, threw her against the wall, and told her if she ever tried to leave, no one would ever find her body. He had money, connections, lawyers. Who would believe her? I believe you, I told her, holding her while she cried. And he's going to pay for this. Claire finally fell asleep around 3 a.m, curled up on my couch under every blanket I owned. I cleaned her wounds, gave her pain meds, made her tea she didn't drink. When she finally slept, I sat in the kitchen in the dark, unable to rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those bruises, those fingerprints. I kept thinking how close I'd come to losing her. If he'd held on just a few seconds longer, my sister would be gone. The rage in my chest felt alive, burning, demanding action. But what kind of action? Call the police? With what evidence? Just her injuries? Brandon would have a story ready. He was careful, always leaving marks where no one would see. His house probably had cameras he controlled. His family had lawyers who could make it all disappear. She'd end up right back there, only this time, he'd be angrier. More dangerous. I paced the kitchen, thinking, discarding one idea after another. Then I caught my reflection in the microwave door. My face, Claire's face. We were identical. Even Aunt Patricia still mixed us up sometimes. Same height, same build, same voice. The idea hit me like lightning. What if we switched places? What if I went back to that house as Claire and faced Brandon myself? I was trained. I knew how to defend myself. More importantly, I wasn't afraid of him. Let him try to hurt me. Let him see what it felt like to fight someone who could fight back. The longer I thought about it, the more sense it made. Claire was too terrified to go to the police, too traumatized to face him again. But I could. I could get evidence, catch him on record, force a confession his lawyers couldn't twist. When Claire woke up around noon, I told her my plan. Absolutely not, she said, sitting up too quickly and wincing. Amber, you don't understand what he's like. He's not just violent. He's smart. He watches everything. He won't know, I said. Claire, we've fooled people our whole lives. This is different. It's dangerous. If he finds out, if something goes wrong, he could kill you. Then I'll make sure he doesn't find out. I took her hands. You can't go back there. If you disappear, he'll look for you. But if I go back as you, I can get proof, real proof that puts him away. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. Living with him, walking on eggshells, never knowing what will set him off. He has so many rules. Then teach me, I said. Teach me the rules. Teach me how to be you. She stared at me for a long moment, weighing every risk. Finally, she whispered, Where would I go? Aunt Patricia's 2 hours away. He never goes there. You'll be safe. Claire closed her eyes, and when she opened them, I saw a small spark of hope I hadn't seen in months. You really think this could work? I know it will, I said. Trust me. We spent the next 2 days preparing, and with each hour, I understood more about the prison my sister had been living in. She taught me everything. How Brandon wanted his coffee at 6:30 a.m. exactly, 2 sugars, cream heated for 20 seconds, how dinner had to be ready at 6:30 p.m. sharp, how she wasn't allowed to lock her phone or spend money without permission, which friends were approved and which were banned. She walked me through the house layout, the security system Brandon controlled, where he kept documents, his moods, his triggers. Don't contradict him, she said quietly. Even if he's wrong, just agree. It's easier that way. That's not living, I said. That's surviving. I know, she whispered. That's all I've done for 2 years. She taught me her mannerisms, how to keep my eyes down, voice soft, movements small. I practiced until my jaw ached from forcing a gentler tone, until I could move like someone trying not to exist. We cut my hair to match hers, a short bob, and I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I looked like her, softer, fragile, scared. She showed me the makeup she used to hide bruises, foundation too heavy, layers of concealer and powder. She was an expert now. Too much practice. Then she handed me her wedding ring. I slipped it on, feeling sick. A symbol meant for love had become a shackle. That second night, Claire pulled out a small box from her purse. $3,000 in 20s and 50s. My escape money, she said. I've been saving for 8 months, taking a little from grocery cash each week. He never noticed. You found the courage to come here, I told her. That took everything. The morning I left, I drove her to Aunt Patricia's first. Our aunt didn't ask many questions, just hugged Claire tightly and promised she'd be safe. The relief on Claire's face nearly broke me. Then I drove alone toward the Morrison house, gripping the steering wheel so tight it hurt. His black Mercedes was in the driveway. He was home early. I checked my reflection one last time. Soft expression, nervous eyes, careful posture. Let's see how you handle someone who fights back, I thought. Then I got out and walked toward the front door of my sister's prison. The key slid into the lock with a soft click that felt far too loud. My heart pounded so hard I thought he'd hear it. The air in the house was heavy, silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I stepped inside, setting my purse down where Claire said she usually did, on the entry table, right next to the framed wedding photo. Her smile in that picture haunted me. Now, standing here as her, it felt like stepping into someone else's nightmare. Claire? His voice came from the living room. Calm. Controlled. But underneath, there was that edge I recognized instantly, the same tone abusers use before the storm. I forced my voice into Claire's soft, careful tone. Hey, you're home early. He appeared from the shadows, tall and perfectly put together. White shirt, sleeves rolled, no tie. He looked like he'd stepped out of a commercial for successful men. But his eyes, cold, calculating, gave him away. He studied me for a long moment, and I could feel every muscle in my body wanting to flinch. Where were you? At the store, I said, lowering my gaze. We were out of milk. He stepped closer. I texted you. My pulse jumped. Claire had warned me. He checked everything. Sorry, my phone died. He tilted his head. You always charge it overnight. Think, Amber. It didn't charge last night. The cord's loose. He watched me for another second, then nodded slowly, walking past me toward the kitchen. You should have told me. You know I worry. Yes, Brandon, I murmured, trying to sound small, compliant. Dinner that night was torture. Every bite, every glance, every silence felt like a test. He asked about her day, about errands, about a neighbor Claire said I should avoid. I stuck to what she'd taught me. Short answers, never contradict him, no opinions. But inside, my rage simmered. He was so normal on the surface, so polite, yet every word dripped with control. When he finally said, "You look different," I froze. Different? I asked carefully. He studied my face. Your hair. Did you change something? Just a trim. He nodded slowly, but didn't look convinced. My hands stayed perfectly still on my lap, even though I wanted to crush the fork in my fist. That first night, I barely slept. I lay awake in Claire's bed, no, his bed, listening to his breathing beside me, steady, heavy. Every instinct screamed to get up and leave, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed to end this. The next morning, I followed Claire's exact routine. His coffee at 6:30, eggs perfectly soft, cream warmed. He read the paper while I stood quietly nearby. When I set the plate in front of him, he said, "You see, when you try, you can be good." My jaw tightened, but I said nothing. When he left for work, I finally breathed again. I moved fast, searching the house. Claire had mentioned he kept a safe in his study behind a painting. It was there, just like she said, but locked, fingerprint scanner and all. I checked drawers, files, his laptop, password protected. He was cautious. Smart, but not perfect. I found an old USB drive in a drawer labeled taxes. I pocketed it. Over the next few days, I kept up the act. Submissive, quiet, obedient. Every yes, Brandon tasted like poison, but it worked. He didn't suspect anything. I memorized his habits, the cameras where he hid things. Slowly, I gathered evidence. Screenshots of texts, voice recordings of his temper when he thought no one was listening. One night, I finally found what I needed. He got drunk, something Claire said he rarely did. He was in the living room, ranting about a deal gone wrong. I hit record on my phone, hidden under the couch cushion. "You think anyone would believe you?" He snarled at the air, pacing. "You're nothing without me. You leave, you disappear." "I made you, Claire." He laughed, a cruel, sharp sound that made my blood boil. That was enough. Proof he was abusive, controlling, threatening. Maybe not enough for prison yet, but it was a start. When he finally stumbled upstairs, I slipped out to the guest room and transferred the audio to the USB drive. I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Small, but real. For the first time, I was winning. The next morning, everything almost fell apart. I woke to find him standing over me, holding my phone. "Who's Amber?" My heart stopped. "What?" He showed me the screen. "A missed call," Claire's burner phone. "Amber called you at 2 a.m. Why would your sister call in the middle of the night?" I forced a shaky laugh. "She couldn't sleep. She's been anxious lately." "About what?" I hesitated too long. His eyes narrowed. "You're lying." "No, He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in hard and fried. "Don't lie to me." His voice dropped to a low, dangerous whisper. "You know what happens when you lie." I went still. My training screamed at me to fight back, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I was sure. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "It won't happen again." He held me there a moment longer, then released me with a shove. "Get out of my sight." I locked myself in the bathroom, shaking with fury. Not fear. Fury. I looked at my reflection, at Claire's bruises fading on my own skin now. "It ends tonight," I whispered. That evening, I set the plan in motion. While he showered, I accessed his laptop using the USB drive. It auto-loaded saved passwords, emails, messages, even bank records. I copied everything. Then I found something worse, folders of hidden camera footage, videos from inside the house, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, every room. And Claire was in all of them. My stomach turned. When he came downstairs later, I was waiting. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. He smirked. "About what?" "I'm leaving." His smile vanished. "What did you say?" "You heard me. I'm done." He laughed, sharp, mocking. "You think you can leave me? You wouldn't last a day on your own." "I'm not Claire," I said. "Not anymore." His eyes narrowed. "What the hell are you talking about?" And then for the first time since stepping into that house, I stopped pretending. My voice changed, firm and steady. "My name is Amber." He blinked, confusion flickering into anger. What kind of sick game? I moved before he finished. One strike to the throat, one to the ribs, controlled, precise. He stumbled back, gasping. "You hit me. You did worse to my sister." He lunged, but I was ready. Years of kickboxing kicked in. Adrenaline, focus, control. He was strong, but rage made him sloppy. I dodged, hit again, until he went down hard. I grabbed my phone, turned on the camera, and aimed it at him. "Say her name," I ordered. "Claire." He wheezed. "Say what you did." He glared up at me. "You're insane." I pressed my foot to his chest, harder. "Say it." He broke first. "I hit her. I hurt her. Are you happy now?" "Not yet," I said, saving the recording. The police arrived 15 minutes later. I'd already called them, reporting a domestic incident and sending the audio and video files ahead. When they came in, Brandon was still on the floor, breathing but defeated. I told them everything. Who I was, what he'd done, how I had proof. They took him away in handcuffs, shouting threats the whole time. When it was over, I drove straight to Aunt Patricia's. Claire met me on the porch, eyes wide, terrified I hadn't come back. When she saw me step out of the car, she ran to me, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. "It's over," I whispered. "He's gone." She cried for a long time. Relief, grief, everything she'd been holding in. Aunt Patricia stood in the doorway, tears in her eyes too. For the first time in years, the three of us were safe under one roof. A week later, the police confirmed the evidence was enough for multiple charges: domestic assault, unlawful surveillance, coercive control. Brandon's lawyers tried to spin it, but the recordings, the hidden cameras, the confession, they couldn't erase any of it. Claire didn't have to testify. The truth was already out. She's in therapy now, rebuilding piece by piece. Some nights, she wakes up crying, still haunted by the past. But she's healing. And me? I'm back at the gym, teaching again, though part of me still listens for knocks in the middle of the night. Only now, when I hear one, I don't freeze. I open the door, because no one will ever hurt my sister again. 3 months passed before I heard from the district attorney. Brandon had taken a plea deal, 5 years in prison, no chance of parole before 3. It wasn't enough, not for what he did, but it was something. Claire didn't attend the sentencing. She said she couldn't bear to see him again, and I didn't blame her. I went instead, sitting in the back row, hidden behind a scarf and sunglasses. He didn't recognize me, not as Claire, not as Amber. He looked smaller somehow, without the arrogance, without control. When the judge read the sentence, his jaw clenched, but he said nothing. For the first time, he couldn't talk his way out. That was enough. Afterward, I walked out of the courthouse into the cold air and felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. But it didn't last. Peace never does. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at Aunt Patricia's house with no return address. Claire opened it, expecting maybe a letter from the court. Instead, there was a single USB drive. No note, no explanation. I told her not to plug it in, but she insisted. What if it's evidence we missed, she said. Against my better judgment, I let her. The drive contained only one file, a video. It opened with static, then showed a dimly lit basement, concrete walls, no windows. A man sat tied to a chair, blood on his face. A voice behind the camera said, "You thought no one would find out, didn't you?" The man looked up. It wasn't Brandon. It was someone else, his business partner, Thomas Reed. The voice continued, "Brandon wasn't the only one. There are more of you." Then the screen went black. Claire turned pale. What does this mean? I didn't know. The metadata showed the file had been created 2 days earlier, after Brandon's sentencing. Someone else was involved. Someone who wanted us to see this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the voice in my head, low, distorted, but familiar somehow. The next day, I went to the police station and handed over the USB. The detective in charge of Brandon's case frowned as he watched the clip. Where did this come from? It was delivered to us. No name, no note. He sighed. Could be a hoax, or someone trying to get attention. Or someone cleaning up loose ends, I said quietly. He promised to look into it, but weeks went by with no updates. Then one morning I got a call. "Ms. Gray, this is Detective Harris. You might want to come down here." When I arrived, he looked grim. We identified the man in the video, Thomas Reed. He was found dead last night, shot twice in the chest, execution style. Claire was devastated. He was awful, she said, but no one deserves that. I wasn't so sure. The detective leaned forward. We checked phone records. Reed had multiple calls with Brandon before his arrest, more than we knew. Money transfers, too. Offshore accounts. Someone cleaned them out right after the sentencing. So someone else is behind this? I asked. Maybe. But whoever they are, they're careful. I drove home in silence that night, thoughts racing. Maybe Brandon had worked for someone bigger, someone who didn't like the publicity his case had drawn. Maybe they thought we knew something. 2 nights later, I found a note slipped under our front door. No envelope, no name. Just 5 words written in black ink. "You shouldn't have interfered, Amber." My stomach dropped. I checked every window, every lock. Claire was already asleep. I didn't wake her. She'd finally begun to feel safe again, and I couldn't take that from her. Not yet. The next morning, I showed the note to the detective. He took it seriously but had no leads. "We'll send a patrol car to keep an eye out," he said. Could just be intimidation. But I knew better. Over the next week, I noticed things. A black SUV parked down the street too often, calls that hung up when I answered, shadows moving outside at night. Claire said I was imagining it, but deep down, she knew. The past wasn't finished with us. Then came the night of the fire. It was just after midnight when I smelled smoke. At first, I thought it was a dream. Then the fire alarm went off. I ran into the hallway, flames already licking up the walls near the kitchen. "Claire!" I screamed. She stumbled out of her room, coughing. I grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the window. Aunt Patricia was trapped in her room. The smoke was too thick. I could barely see. I ran back, but the heat was unbearable. The firemen pulled us out minutes later, but it was too late for her. The official report called it an electrical fault. I didn't believe it. Neither did the detective. He said there were traces of accelerant near the fuse box. Someone had said it deliberately. Claire was shattered. Aunt Patricia had been our last piece of family. We buried her a week later under gray skies. Claire didn't speak the whole day. After everyone left, she stood by the grave and whispered, "It's my fault." "No," I said firmly. "It's his fault. All of them." But that night, when I checked her room, her bed was empty. The front door was open. She was gone. I found a note on her pillow. "I have to end this. Don't follow me." I called the police immediately. They searched for days. No sign of her. Her phone was off. Her bank account untouched. It was like she'd vanished. 2 weeks later, I got another package. Inside was a single photo. Claire, sitting in a dimly lit room looking straight at the camera. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. Written across the back were 3 words. She made her choice. I stared at it for a long time, my hands shaking. The date on the photo was from 3 days earlier. She was alive. But where? I turned the picture over again. In the corner, barely visible, was a reflection. A window with a neon sign outside. I zoomed in. The letters were blurred but readable enough. Blue Harbor Motel. The next morning, I was already driving. The motel was 3 hours away, near the coast. Room 14. The manager remembered her. Checked in alone, he said. Paid cash. Quiet girl. The room was empty when I arrived, but there were signs someone had left in a hurry. An open suitcase, half a cup of coffee, and a second note on the table. Don't look for me. It's safer this way. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding that note. For the first time in years, I didn't know what to do. I'd spent so long protecting Claire, fighting for her, saving her. But what if this was her way of saving me? The sun was setting outside, turning the ocean red and gold. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. Her face, my face, both scarred in different ways. Maybe that was the truth of being twins. When one is broken, the other bleeds. I don't know where she is now. Maybe she's hiding. Maybe she's finally free. Or maybe she's still running from something I can't see. But if she ever needs me again, if that knock comes in the middle of the night, I'll be ready. Because this time, no one will lay a hand on my sister and walk away breathing. 6 months passed. I'd moved to a new apartment, different city, new job, new name. The police never found Claire, though the case remained open. Detective Harris called once a month with updates that led nowhere. Each time, I asked the same question, and each time, his answer was the same. We're still looking. I kept the photo of her on my desk. Sometimes I'd catch myself talking to it, as if she could hear me. You're safe, right? You did what you had to do. But the silence always answered back. One evening, as I was leaving work, I noticed a white envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. Inside was a note written in neat block letters. You still don't understand. No signature. No explanation. I drove home with shaking hands. The words echoed in my mind. Understand what? That night, I dreamed of Claire again, standing by the sea, her hair blowing in the wind, looking at something beyond the horizon. When I called her name, she didn't turn around. She just said, "You can't fix what was never broken." Then she vanished into the water. I woke up in a sweat. The next morning, I decided to visit Blue Harbor again. The motel had changed ownership, but the room was still there. Same curtains, same chipped paint. I stood in the middle of it, half expecting her to walk in. But all I felt was emptiness. When I stepped outside, an older woman approached me. "You're looking for the girl, aren't you?" she asked. I froze. "You knew her?" "She stayed here a while," the woman said. Quiet, kept to herself. But one night, a man came looking for her. Tall, dark coat. She left right after that, told me not to tell anyone where she was going. "Do you remember anything else?" I asked. The woman thought for a moment. She said something strange. "Tell her it's not over. Tell her it's just beginning." That night, I sat in my car staring at the sea. The wind howled, the waves crashed, and for a moment, I thought I saw her. Just a shadow at the edge of the pier. I called out, but there was no answer. Maybe I was chasing a ghost. Maybe she was gone for good. But deep down, I knew Claire was alive. And wherever she was still fighting the same battle we started together. Weeks passed. I tried to rebuild my life, but the past followed like a shadow. Strange things kept happening. My apartment door left ajar, my laptop wiped clean, my mail tampered with. I reported it, but the police said there was no proof. Then one night, I got a call. Unknown number. I answered, expecting silence. Instead, a familiar voice spoke. "Amber." My breath caught. "Claire," a pause. Then, "Stop looking for me. They're watching you." "Where are you?" I begged. But the line went dead. I tried calling back. No response. I traced the number. It was a burner phone. For days, I couldn't focus. I replayed the call again and again, analyzing every word, every breath. She sounded calm, controlled. But there was fear beneath it. I knew she was protecting me, just like I had once protected her. 2 nights later, another envelope arrived. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No handwriting this time. Typed words, clean and precise. "She's made her choice. So should you." I felt my blood run cold. I packed a bag that night, cash, clothes, documents, and drove until the city disappeared behind me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. Somewhere along the coast, I stopped at a small diner. The waitress smiled, poured coffee, and asked if I was passing through. I nodded, and she said, "You look tired, honey. Long drive?" "Too long," I replied. Then I noticed something. Behind the counter near the register, a photo of the staff. One of them looked like Claire. I stared. The same eyes, same quiet smile, but the name tag said Emily. "Who's that?" I asked casually, pointing at the picture. "Oh, Emily," the waitress said. "She worked here a few months ago. Sweet girl, moved inland with her boyfriend, I think." My throat tightened. "Do you know where?" She shrugged. "Didn't say, just left a note for the owner. Said she was starting over." I smiled faintly. "Yeah," I murmured. "That sounds like her." As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and almost thought I saw her again, standing by the roadside, watching, just like before. But when I blinked, she was gone. Maybe that's how it's meant to be. Maybe we were never supposed to find peace, only distance. Now, when people ask my name, I hesitate before answering. Sometimes I say Amber. Sometimes I say Claire. After everything, I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. What I do know is this. If she ever calls again, if that voice comes through the static one more time, I'll answer. Because sisters don't vanish. They become each other's ghosts. And somewhere out there, one of us is still alive. It's been a year since that last call. Sometimes I still wake in the middle of the night, half expecting the phone to ring again, her voice cutting through the dark. It never does. Yet every few weeks, a reminder surfaces. A news story about a missing person. A photo that looks too familiar. A strange number that calls once and never again. I've moved twice since then, changed jobs, changed everything I could. But ghosts don't care about addresses. They follow memory, not maps. One evening, I came home to find a letter slipped under my door. No name, just a single sheet of paper with a photograph attached. It showed a woman standing near a pier at sunset. Her back was to the camera, but I recognized the curve of her shoulders instantly. Claire. Below the image were 3 words, "Not your fault." I sank to the floor, holding it for a long time. Relief and grief mixed until I couldn't tell them apart. If she was alive, she was still watching. Still making sure I survived too. After that, I stopped running. I started writing everything down. Every note, every call, every dream. Maybe one day someone will need to know what happened, how it began, and why it never truly ended. Because stories like ours don't have endings. They fade, reappear, shift shapes. The truth hides in the silence between 2 sisters who became mirrors of each other. One who vanished to stay free, and one who stayed to remember. Sometimes, when the wind hits just right, I swear I hear her laugh. The quiet kind, the one that used to fill a room. It fades quickly, but it's enough. Enough to remind me she's out there somewhere, building a life that doesn't need my protection. I keep the last note she sent me inside a drawer. It's worn now, the ink almost gone, but I know every word by heart. Let go, Amber. Live for both of us. So that's what I try to do. Every morning I open the window, breathe in the salt air, and whisper back, "I'm still here." Maybe one day she'll hear it. Maybe one day she'll answer. Until then, I'll keep both names close, Amber and Claire. 2 halves of the same story, bound by blood, choice, and silence. Because even after everything, one truth remains. No one disappears completely.